right, welcome back to Delayed Offside. This is a look in the week that was not, or was. No, it actually was. It occurred. So we're going to talk about probably the biggest news to occur in the last couple of days, which is simply that of Tony DeAngelo and the departure from the beloved Blue Shirts, those New York Rangers of old. Now, Tony DeAngelo is a defenseman who ran 53 points last year. He had a previously high, I think, of like 30 the year before. It was a 2014 Tampa Bay Lightning draft pick, 19th overall. And according to the GM, Jeff Gordon, he has played his last game for the Blue Jackets. This came after an incident involved, or sorry, I said Blue Jackets, didn't I? This came after, with the Rangers. This came after an incident involving the goaltender Georgiev, and there's been a little bit of, mixed as to what actually occurred. Some saying some stories of him keeping a rookie's first goal puck. Some other stories saying things that were occurring behind the scenes involving arguments with other players. And Gordon went on to kind of say they told him after he was benched for a game where he was not actually getting over it, that if there was another incident, if anything else happened, he was done with the Blue Shirts. And as a result of his fight with Georgiev, is no longer available, has just been put on waivers, passed through waivers, and is no longer there, not on the taxi squad, just sitting at home. So what do we think about this? Like, do we think that this story is true? Do we think there's something, like, where are people feeling about this? This is kind of a pretty big change to occur here from someone who was a strong pointed defenseman, but not really a popular defenseman when we look. Let's go with the closest fan base to it, the Toronto Maple Leafs. So they're the closest to the New York Rangers. So let's hear what you think. What are your thoughts on the Tony DeAngelo situation, or what do we call it, like fiasco?
Well, obviously he's just not a great locker room guy, and the team just had enough of him. And I heard about the Georgiev. I heard that he made a snide comment to him as he was crossing by in the hallway after the game, or in the locker room, or wherever it was. This was reported on 31 Thoughts, and Georgiev responded, and they got into some fisticuffs, from what I hear. I also heard a rumor that Chris Kreider stepped in and punched him too.
I heard that rumor as well. But that's a Twitter rumor, right?
Yes, all rumors and innuendos, but I like that one. Obviously this isn't the first incident. You would think with one incident, they'd let it pass, give him a warning, some sort of punishment. But so there must be a bad history here. And I also read I think it was the GM or the coach said that it had nothing to do with his messaging on social media. He was quite outspoken on social media as well, and quite controversial there, but I guess that had nothing to do with it, at least according to the team. And if it had nothing to do with that, then obviously there was some other incidents with teammates as well. And he hasn't been producing this year either. He hasn't been getting very many points. He's been bad defensively. So when you're not producing and you're a cancer in the locker room, out you go.
You guys think this is a bad look for the Rangers? The fact that they, knew some of the stuff about him. Like, he's a guy who's had incidences in as far back as the OHL. Like, his place, his knowledge, it's all kind of commonly out there. Incidences, things he said, problems that he's been. Basically, the fact that he's generally considered a bigot. Do you think it's a bad look for the Blue Jackets? This is a guy that they've kind of worked with for the last couple of years, that they've kept.
Rangers?
And why do I keep saying Blue Jackets?
It's because we talked about the Blue Jackets so much.
It's because I keep saying Blue Shirts, which is like the nickname for the Rangers. But essentially, do you think it's a bad look for the Rangers, the fact that they've kept this guy, worked with him for all these times and so forth? And that should count. I think that's twice I've said Blue Jackets.
Take a drink every time Baron mixes it up.
Well, I'm going to stop, because there's never going to be any reason to talk about the Rangers, and there's zero reason to ever talk about the Blue Jackets except for like a trade that they made. But do you think this is a bad look for their organization today? Because today a lot of people talked about, today was about damage control, trying to kind of, cut those ties and keep things a little bit better. So what do you guys think?
Right. It's interesting because, you think those organizations see these men as boys, and they are boys when they get them. So they think that they're going to change, right? And a lot of them probably do over time. But you think of different players like Josh Ho-Sang. There was issues there within, the Islanders organization with him. Another guy you kind of think of is Sean Avery. Immediately comes to mind with certain organizations like Dallas. Just did not work or mesh with him at all. Another one I had in my mind was even like Evander Kane. We talked about that previously with his teammates, right? So I think as an organization, you want that skilled player to develop and to kind of hopefully mature. And that obviously didn't happen. And, you know, the last straw came and it bit them in the butt, right? So I don't think it's a reflection of the organization, a bad reflection of them. I think it's them saying we did everything we could, we were wrong.
Sanjay?
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree.
That's terrible radio, Sanjay. God,
What's
you
that?
suck. I said, that's terrible radio, Sanjay. You suck. Like, come on.
No, man. Being an NHL player, it's a privilege. It's not a right. And if you're doing stuff outside the rink that's detrimental to the league, to the team, if you're being a grade A, first class a-hole, pretty much is what he was, what he is by all accounts that you hear about him. He doesn't deserve to be in the NHL. I'm sorry. It's just that simple. And it's a new way of thinking because 15, 20 years ago, a lot of times, you know, that stuff wasn't really talked about in the media. There was no social media. So if you were like a jerk, you could probably play in the league and no one would be the wiser. But nowadays, I think people are kind of fed up with that and saying, no, like if you're going to do this stuff, you don't deserve to be in the league. And I forget the guy's name, but the Coyotes draft pick this year. Similar situation where he was being a bully, just doing terrible things.
Yes. Right. We've kind of forgot about him, but he was cut when it came out that he had bullied like a disabled child, wasn't it? At his school, like continually.
3 years.
Yeah. And apparently that was known too prior to them drafting him, I think. Because that was the reason why other teams had passed on him.
And they thought he would be able to change, right? And that
they thought he was done and he had moved on, and they were like, no, this continued on after. But
and sometimes
I forgot about that.
You think, or you wonder if just the talent, because of the talent there, they're willing to kind of overlook some of those deficiencies in their character. And so they were willing to look past that because he was a good player and they wanted to bring that in because they wanted to win games. So maybe the same thing with the Rangers, right? I mean, DeAngelo I think he was 12th in Norris voting last year, right? Like he's a decent defense. I mean, he hasn't played well this year, but he can put up offensive points. And when you have someone helping to contribute to wins, then you're maybe willing to look the other way. I do wonder if they're. Go ahead.
I was going to say the exact same thing as you. I was literally saying I do wonder. So go ahead. You say it.
I do wonder if they're going to be able to trade him. I wonder if there's going to be a team out there that needs some offense on the back end that's willing to take a chance on DeAngelo.
Well, I think the price hurt. That doesn't mean you can't move him, but I do have to wonder, like, you've gone through several teams already. You have an image. You have an image that's attached to you if you decide to pick up this player. So I kind of wonder, like, what organization's going to, like, make those moves, you know?
Yeah, I wonder that too. Although Adam brought up Evander Kane and some of the issues he had with teammates in the past, but San Jose felt that they had a veteran enough locker room that they could handle Evander Kane, and you know, he had the talent that they wanted to bring him in. So you never know if there's a team that's on the cusp of playoffs or being a contender, but they're just missing that offensive piece on the back end. Maybe they're willing to give him a shot.
You know, you never really
go ahead, bad PR, right? Like, if it doesn't matter if they bring him in, you know, social media is going to rip the team. You know, like, it's not going to be a popular move, right? So you'd have to be very confident in that move that he's going to be able to turn it around, because if you make that move and he continues what he's doing, man, that's like,
and he's never stopped, right? No. It's not like anything's made him stop so far, and you do have a section of your fan base that you are going to probably alienate, and this does happen when players make certain moves, right? So I think that's something to think about.
Yeah, it's like if the Kings brought back Slava Voinov.
Well, in fairness, they probably wanted to.
Well, exactly. It's the same kind of situation, more physical. Well, not really, actually. 2 beatings.
I wonder if his contract too would not help the situation, in that he still has another year on his contract, 4.8 next year.
Right.
You know, if it was just this year and then he was a free agent, maybe you'd be a little more inclined to take a chance because it's just for a short time. But if you have to keep him on for next year too, then maybe you're not willing to take that kind of contract on.
Or do you buy him out?
Well,
I don't think
maybe
you're
the
gonna buy
Rangers
him
buy
out.
him out. I don't know.
No?
Ooh, why you have to spread that out longer and divide that money out. A buyout is not a good option. You're
So
better
then
off
And
Right
just
now he's
pay
on the
him
taxi
and
squad, and he's I'm assuming
correct.
still with
sitting
teammates
at home making $5 million, and I think that is probably
where he's going to be.
well better than buying him out, wasting
Right.
money as opposed to really hamstringing your team moving forward, especially with a young core. You'd still be
Yeah.
paying for him years when you're trying to sign Lafreniere and other guys, right? So I think
Right.
that's a big part of it. I will also make this point. You guys pointed out about Evander Kane, but you know what? You never heard about Evander Kane and his problems in the Thrashers organization. You haven't heard anything about it really in San Jose outside of his bankruptcy, which is not a team issue. It's a him issue. And I think maybe the reason you heard about it in Winnipeg is that it was probably overblown by media to some degree. Like I have to wonder. Like I'm sure people didn't like him, but there's lots of guys that people don't like. What was the guy last year? Wasn't it on the Caps who was like just trashing his fellow hockey players on a group chat that it all got leaked out that he was just slamming on guys? Do you remember that? Like he's done.
Yeah,
right?
but he got cut.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like the cab
exactly.
ride in Arizona. Right?
Yeah,
The
except
Uber-
most of those guys got to keep playing.
And
Yeah,
that,
like
and
this
that was
guy
guys
didn't.
bitching about their. Oh no, that's Ottawa. That was Ottawa.
That was
They were bitching
Ottawa,
about
but
the
that
coach.
was
that was in Arizona. Was
it was in
Oh,
Arizona
okay.
in an Uber. Yeah.
And they were bitching about the coach, which I'm sure most players do at some point in the year. But
Yeah.
and the thing with Evander Kane, I should point out. I mean, I don't think his issues were the same kind as DeAngelo's. I think it was more of a maturity
they're clearly
aspect
not.
with him. So I don't want to say, or I don't want to make it sound like I think he's kind of the exact same guy.
No, he's not. Yeah, exactly. They're nothing alike. It's just that idea of problems, right?
Yeah,
But
like I
even
heard
like-
he would show up to meetings late and
Late,
video sessions late and not wearing a suit and that type of thing. So it was more a professionalism type of thing with Evander Kane, I think.
Well, and if you look at the
They got
Winnipeg Jets
99
organization,
problems. And DeAngelo ain't one.
but if you look at the Winnipeg Jets situation, like they seem to have trouble with guys, man. There seems to be a lot of unhappy parts there a lot lately, and I'm not sure if that's just part of that core structure or what that is. It was a very nice shirt scratch, Ryan, with that mic. It comes in nice and crisp.
Oh, does it?
It's like, wow, I can really hear that.
It's a good microphone, picks up everything.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of player movement here, we had some interesting movement in the sense that all of a sudden in the Canadian division specifically, we're starting to hear a lot of rumblings of players wanting to be moved out. You know, first started with Roslovic, who demanded kind of to be traded and ended up going to the Blue Jackets. But since then, there's actually been two this week alone, with Mete for the Canadiens and Bennett for the Calgary Flames. So this is a big change here. We're starting to hear more and more of these people. I mean, like Dubois, even though that was an American team, Laine, those are all things where people wanted to be moved out and weren't happy in their current situations. But it's starting to get itself into the mainstream media here a lot more. What do you think about this? Is this the right move for a player to do, to try to get moved out by calling attention to it publicly?
You know, just talking about Sam Bennett, because I'm always watching the Flames and always around him here in Calgary. It came
Not right
out
now,
today.
you aren't.
It came out today that he said that he didn't actually request the trade. I don't know the full story behind it,
Okay.
but
I can pad this a little bit for you, which is that his request never went to the Calgary Flames. His agent put the story out and Friedman got it.
mhm.
And so it went past the Flames to a reporter.
And it is Darren Ferris, and he seems to love
Right.
to be in the media. So there is
One
that.
of many. One of
Yes.
many.
Right. But just taking this story as if he did say it, which most likely he did. Unfortunately, I think it's probably for the best for everyone. When Sam Bennett got drafted 4th overall, expectations were so high. You go back to that first playoff series against the Ducks as a rookie, and he looked tremendous. Like he joined in the playoffs, and he didn't look out of step. But unfortunately, in the regular season, he just hasn't been able to bring it every day. And I still think the talent is there, and I still think the player is good enough that he can be an everyday NHL impact player. but it's just not working out in Calgary. I don't know what it is, if it's just the fit, the coaches. Like, he's had 3 or 4 coaches here. He just hasn't been able to get it done in the regular season. Playoffs, he's been tremendous. Every playoffs for the last, how many times Calgary makes it, he's always the best forward in the playoffs. But I think, as much as I want to see him succeed, unfortunately, I think he probably would be better served to get traded elsewhere to further his career. And, no hard feelings. I think it's, if he's feeling like, he's third line now and he's been passed on the depth chart by Dylan Dubé and Mangiapane, then he's kind of feeling a little bit frustrated. And I could understand that, thinking like, where's my shot of the top 2 lines? Because he's saddled on the 3rd or 4th line pretty much since he got here. So, I think it's, is it the right move to go out in the public? I don't know. Like, maybe he tried to handle this behind closed doors with the coach and GM, and they said, we're not going to trade you. And maybe he thought this was a last ditch effort. Maybe he's just like, I've had enough and I just need a fresh start. And you know what? I don't blame him. Like, as much as it sucks to see him go, I think it's the right move for everyone involved.
I think in both situations, it has to do with depth, right? Like, Calgary's is very, has a lot of depth in their forward ranks, and Montreal has a great defense, and just both players aren't able to play up in the lineup because there's better players ahead of them, and they probably feel like they deserve more ice time, but it's hard to get in their current situation.
Yeah, I think we found our clip for the week, by the way. We had Sanjay's love story of the Flames, and now we have Sanjay and Bennett break up.
Yeah. Valentine's Day's next week, so we'll have to reconcile after.
Yeah. Have him holding a broken heart instead.
Yeah.
Bennett pulling on one side of the heart and splitting two.
Yeah.
So there's some other surprising news this week that came out actually in the Pittsburgh Penguins, who have not been the team we've all kind of thought they would be going into this season. But the big surprise really came in. Their GM, Jim Rutherford, gave a surprise resignation to the team in the role of GM. And word is that he is already looking for work somewhere else. And he won't speak about it as to his reasons, just saying it was time to go. The thing was up. But the rumor on there is that there was a deal that was he had a trade essentially set up for Letang, and that the deal was nixed by ownership, being Mario Lemieux and the rest of that ownership group, and that they want Crosby, Malkin, and Letang to retire as Penguins, something that not every great Penguin got to do, but Mario did. And so they this kind of came out of nowhere, really shocked everyone. And are you just pointing at yourself again, Sanjay?
Your jerseys?
No, I was
or you
pointing at
something?
Yager. Where is it? There we go. The Yager Rangers jersey.
You have literally a video of you, and you're like, it's like, here's the Smith jersey.
Like,
I point at it. Here's the Hall jersey. I point at it. And you're just like,
because it's backwards. It's backwards. It's like front facing for me, but when I look in the video, it's kind of backwards. So I gotta get used to that.
But this resignation came kind of as a surprise out of nowhere. No one really understood what happened there, but it seems like it's changed. So what are your thoughts about this resignation and how he did in his time as a GM? And I was going to look at it. I think we have to look at it in all aspects, not just his Stanley Cup wins. So where are we thinking about Jim Rutherford in his time with the Penguins as a GM here?
Can I address that rumor you just brought up, Aaron, about trading Letang?
Yes,
maybe it's true, but to me, it just doesn't make sense, because this is a guy who traded a first-round draft pick and a solid prospect for Kasperi Kapanen, who during his time as a Leaf was a third-line winger who was a great player, but not a top-line guy who deserves a first-round pick and draft pick and a draft choice, and so prospect. And so I'm wondering, would he want to trade Letang if he's not trying to rebuild? And why would he want to rebuild if he just traded a first round pick and a prospect for Kasperi Kapanen to try to bring some scoring to build around Crosby and Malkin and try to get this team back to the cup? To me, it just doesn't make sense. Unless he gave up on this team or felt that they weren't doing well enough. But I don't believe that either, because it's just too early in the season to realize the team's not good enough. So I just don't quite get that rumor.
He is in the final year of his contract, and that's the other part of it, was that there was no extension granted or anything. It was going to be a see how the season's going kind of thing as well, and I think that was part. But they apparently, by all accounts, they did not want him to leave when he said, "I'm resigning." Now, who wants the GM to quit in the middle of a season? But they were quite happy to have him for at least this year.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because, you know, as a GM, you want full autonomy and not to be cut off, and that must have been a frustration for him if he did have a trade lined up for Letang. And the thing with Letang too is he gets injured quite easily. So while he's, you know, playing well and has a price tag on him where you can get return for him as opposed to a bag of pucks. So that would be frustrating. And, you know, putting in that work as a GM, making those calls, doing the negotiating, maybe he was just on his last straw with that kind of stuff and, you know, wants a place where he has full autonomy to make those kinds of hockey decisions.
Yeah, maybe it was a hockey trade of some sort where he's bringing in another great player. In my mind, I always think if you're trading away an aging veteran who's still a top player in the league, it's usually because you're rebuilding and you're trying to get draft picks and prospects back. But you're right. Maybe he felt the defense was good enough without Letang, and he was looking for either goaltending help or forward help, possibly.
Well, it seems like goaltending is their major issue so far this year with the Smith and Yari, mostly Yari being a problem. But yeah, it's hard to imagine what your return is going to be unless you're find a team that's got two young defensemen. I mean, they've done pretty good at grabbing guys from other organizations and building around that way. But this year, the Penguins just haven't really looked right. And that might be part of the fact that they have a lot of injuries on defense, or the fact that goaltending has been subpar. Malkin's not going as well. It seems to be a fair bit there.
Yeah, what's up with Malkin this year, right? But, I mean, it's still early. Hopefully it's just a slow start for him for the Penguins' sake.
He played with Phil Kessel in some of his better years. Who are his wingers now?
Couldn't tell you.
Exactly.
Because he's not playing with Kapanen.
Rust?
Kapanen's on the third. It is Rust and
Rust has
Sherry?
Kapanen this year.
Or did you
Sherry?
say Kapanen's on the first line? Gensel?
No, Gensel's on the first with Crosby. It might be Sherry.
Yeah, I'm not
I
sure.
don't know.
But
You
I
know
mean,
what? I'll look it up.
Malkin's a good enough player that he can usually drive a line by himself.
Well, you'd think,
but
but
he's
something
getting
might
up
be
there,
going there
right?
too.
Yeah.
It's true.
In terms
He's
of
not Ovechkin.
Yeah.
in terms of his legacy, I mean, you already mentioned the Stanley Cups. I would say, but it's not just the fact that he won Stanley Cups. I would say that he made moves that helped win those Stanley Cups. Like, he did inherit a team that already had Crosby and Malkin and Letang and Marc-Andre Fleury, but he made some great trades. He was really a GM who loved to make trades, and it was a lot of fun with him as a GM in the league because of that. You know, he brought in Kessel and Hagelin and Bonino in trades, and that HBK line really helped them win that first Stanley Cup together. And I mean, to be honest, I felt that Kessel should have won the Conn Smythe over Crosby that year because he led the team in points. And it was that HBK line that dominated the playoffs for them, which sucked for me because I remember in the fantasy pool, I had Crosby and Malkin, and I think Letang. I had all three of those guys, and they go to the cup final. I still don't win because it was the HBK line scoring all the time. So that
He rigged the
sucked.
cards.
Yeah. It didn't work out in my favor that time. He made some other great trades. He brought in Justin Schultz for a third-round pick. That was a great trade for him. The James Neal trade for Patrick Hornqvist. I mean, I remember at the time thinking, ooh, I don't know, James Neal, you know, scores some pretty good goals for Pittsburgh, but Hornqvist did great. Hornqvist did great for you. Don't like Hornqvist there, Sanjay?
No, I don't like James Neal.
Oh yeah, like he did.
Get him outta here.
He was a good goal scorer for Pittsburgh. But
Pittsburgh,
Hornqvist brought a different element to the team that, you know, ended up winning 2 cups. So he's made some great trades. I mean, he's made some weird moves too, though, like signing Jack Johnson for 5 years when everyone knew that Jack Johnson is a terrible defenseman. Trading Hornqvist for Matheson, trading Kessel for Alex Galchenyuk. Like, he's made some weird moves too. And
it does feel like, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say,
like
he had
there's
no
a lot
issues
of
trading
battles.
away draft picks, right?
I was going to say that Mata trade as well. Yeah. You know, and real quick to dive back, the line mates of Evgeny Malkin as of today are Jason Zucker and Kasperi Kapanen.
Zucker.
Zucker. Yeah,
I forgot
Zucker's
about
a
that
good
trade.
guy. And
Yeah.
that means Kapanen's not on the first line. Kapanen's producing. He's got 5 points in 6 games. So
He's good.
I do think it's he is.
He is good. He is good. But I mean, he played with John Tavares, and John Tavares made a living at making players look better than they really were. I mean, Bailey is still getting paid for those times playing with Tavares. And Kapanen just couldn't seem to produce up there. But who knows?
And another thing another knock I've heard against Kasperi Kapanen from another friend who's a huge Pittsburgh fan is he said, I really like Kasperi Kapanen. He's got the skill. No hockey sense though.
Yeah.
He's like, his hockey sense is horrible.
Yeah.
So that's a big knock against him.
I think it's hard to get to that level and have terrible hockey sense, though.
I agree.
I think you can have low hockey sense, but you're not playing in the NHL with like horrific hockey sense.
No, I agree.
It just might not be your strongest suit. But yeah,
you just have to be able to think the game at a
Rutherford.
Fast level, right? Some guys
Or
can
be
do
in
it,
the
and
right
some
spots.
can't. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I do think it's interesting with Rutherford, though. He's at the end here when we look at his stuff. He's going to get remembered for his 2 cups and for taking his team and having back-to-back winnings. He's got, but something like, he brings in Sullivan as a coach, and you kind of forget the fact that he brought in his old coach from the Portland Winterhawks, who was just awful. Worst season for the Pittsburgh Penguins in a long time. I think they missed the playoffs that year. And he makes all these changes, and at the end of the day, he brings in other guys, Phil Kessel, everything else. They have their 2 runs. They're still competitive. But, I mean, we're looking at the Penguins moving forward here, and the cupboards are going to be pretty bare. And I guess that's the legacy. The legacy is I open this window, I'm jamming it open, and when it shuts, it ain't opening anytime soon. And at the end of the day, whether you have Crosby, Malkin, Letang, whatever, once this era is over, the Penguins are going to be in a world of hurt for a while. And I don't know that Rutherford's going to get the responsibility for that, because he was spending a lot of top draft picks or draft picks at farm things, anything to prop them up, to really essentially get a mediocre team to be okay. And I don't know if that's a great strategy.
Yeah, you're right. Like, you look at the Penguins right now, they don't have any elite prospects. They don't have their 1st round pick in the next year's draft. They only have their 2nd, their 5th, and a few 7th round picks, and that's all they have. So the cupboards are bare, and they have an aging core. Crosby, Malkin, Letang, they're not getting any younger, and they're past their primes now. They're still really good, but they're not as good as they used to be.
So
and
technically,
years
old
of
Mother
mileage
Hubbard.
on them.
Sorry about that.
Your Mother Hubbard joke. Let's hear it.
Well, the cupboards are bare. You got to get rid of old Mother Hubbard. Got to keep them stocked.
My thinking with Pittsburgh is, who cares? They won 2 back-to-back. They won back-to-back Stanley Cups. If I was a Flames fan, well, I'm a Flames fan, but if they won 2 back-to-back Stanley Cups, I wouldn't care if they made the playoffs for the next 10 years. Like, look at LA, Chicago, Pittsburgh, Detroit. When they were really hot and then they cooled off. Like,
I guess the question is, if you're a GM, if you're going to take over Rutherford's position and be the GM of the Pittsburgh Penguins coming in, what do you do? What's your plan? Are you going to continue to go for it with Crosby and Malkin, Letang, or do you decide, nope, it's the window shut and it's time to sell off these guys and get some good assets back while they're still valuable?
How much freedom do you have from ownership? Yeah, that's the question.
Obviously not a lot if the rumors are true.
Well, that Mike Gillies thing where they leaked his presentation out there to the Penguins, that was kind of an interesting read, actually. It was very self-deprecating in a lot of ways, but it also kind of gave you an insight into the process of how like trying to get into that role is. And the fact that they have people in mind, it still boggles my mind that Pete Chiarelli is coming up for this. And I hope Pete Chiarelli becomes the head GM of the Penguins. But the truth is they don't have anything to really lose. So I don't know if that's the best place for him. But I mean, if it happens, it happens. And that's fine with me. But the way it's sounding, man, Chiarelli is going to work again. And that is interesting given how bad it was. Right, exactly. Because it was bad by the end. Like, everyone can say what they want with the Oilers being a garbage organization, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But Pete Chiarelli put them in this spot more than anyone else. That's the guy you decide to helm your team. There's lots of guys that haven't got other looks. Murray, who used to be in Buffalo, who tanked his entire team. He hasn't gotten another look anywhere. It's just interesting.
A name I heard as a rumor for the position.
Made some bad choices.
A name I heard for as a rumor for the position was John Ferguson Jr., which I heard that and I was like, he's still around. I didn't realize he was still involved in hockey.
He's been scouting.
He's
Yeah, I
with
think
Boston,
but he went
yeah.
to yeah. But
Pierre Maguire.
they were talking about, but Maguire always pops up in these things for some reason. So, but they were talking about John Ferguson Jr. and they're like, well, maybe this is an example of a guy who got a chance too early, and now he's got more pedigree, more knowledge. It'd be different, but still, like,
he was so bad as the GM of the Leafs, so bad.
How about John Chaika?
Not for this year. He won't. He's
No,
banned.
I know.
Yeah.
That's 18 months it would run the span of, I believe I heard on 31 Thoughts.
Yeah, well, I mean, probably, don't try to double dip your team with the rest of the NHL when you work in the same organization, essentially. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did he do anything great while he was in Arizona?
No.
Because they signed some pretty mediocre players long term. They don't have much going on there again either. So
No.
leave it to them. We'll move on a bit here. We're going to talk a little bit about the point race, which has just occurred here. So McDavid and Draisaitl kind of jumped together, both having pretty big nights, 5 points and 6 point nights, launching themselves ahead in the race. I think it's 24 and 21. Is that what it is? I'm not sure off the top of my head. I'll have to double check this. But essentially, they're way the hell ahead of everybody else. What are your thoughts on the score race? Do you think it's possible they hit 100 points in 50-some games? Sanjay?
Yes, I think it is. They play Ottawa 9 times, so
Yeah.
that's like 3 square on the bingo card right there. You look at the Ottawa defense, the Ottawa goaltending. Every game that they play against Ottawa, they have a potential to give someone $1 million because they could score 5 goals in one game.
Yeah, Save on Foods is sweating watching those games.
They're worried right now. And then, like, even if you look at the other teams, like Toronto, McDavid and Draisaitl really seem to play against them really well. Calgary, for some reason, they always seem to bring their A game against us. Vancouver, Winnipeg. So, this division is offense, and those are the 2 best offensive forwards in the game. So I absolutely think, 100 points. Like, that would be, 160 points in an 82 game season.
Well, I mean, if they get 6 points every time they play Ottawa, there's 54 points right there. So you're halfway.
that's a tough ask to get 6 points every game, but
True.
I think they could get at least like 2 every game. Yeah.
Yeah. Connor McDavid currently is sitting at 22 points, while Draisaitl has 21.
Who's third? Who's third place there, Adam?
Third is Mitch Marner with 14, a measly 14.
And the thing was, they were tied before that Ottawa game, weren't they? Or they were close?
No, they were not.
It's 21. Okay, maybe not.
Connor
they were a lot closer.
Yeah.
The 6 points.
22
spread that out. I know. I had to do math in my
5.
head, and it didn't
They were
work.
close. They were close.
So, Belon, like, what do you think about their? It's actually just a little bit of a switch, but Marner's outproducing Matthews right now. Is he kind of the big guy for your team? Is he really the pony that pulls the Toronto Maple Leafs right now?
He's one of them. I don't think Toronto.
Well, of course, it's a multi-horse. It's a team game, Ryan.
Well, you know what? The other
anything
thing with
about that
Marner
team
too is
game.
he's playing more minutes than Matthews. He's playing the most minutes out of any forward on that team. Marner's playing the most minutes of any forward on that team. So obviously he has the confidence of the coach to be playing that often.
I've said from the beginning when Marner and Matthews came in that Marner was a better all-around player and producer than Matthews. I think he is because no, don't you hold your tongue. I think he is better, and it's simply because of his vision and playmaking abilities. His skill is unreal. I don't think Matthews has as many goals. I think he still has a lot of goals, but I don't think he has as many without Marner.
Interesting.
Quick glaring. It's true.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I don't know. He performed pretty well with Nylander on a line.
Not as good as if he would have been with Marner.
I tell you what, though, Matthews is really turning to a great two-way center. His defensive play has gotten a lot better. He's more aggressive this year, hitting and standing up for himself. I've really liked that part of his game. And then his goal scoring is elite. But like Mitch Marner is a fantastic player. Mitch Marner's going to get you. He'll probably end up getting more points than Matthews on a consistent basis, as he has throughout their career so far, because he is the better playmaker. So he is going to probably get more points that way, but Matthews is going to get more goals, and he's the center. So I
was gonna say,
would still
who's
say
got the higher
Matthews over
ceiling
Marner,
here?
but not by much.
Who's got the higher ceiling, really? Because I still think Matthews has a higher ceiling. Like, he just hasn't achieved it yet, but he looks amazing this year. He's
He's
everyone
been
talks about how
snake
great
bitten a
Matthews
bit.
is. Everyone talks about how great he is, but his play is better. You tell me he's a two-way center. Are you sure he's snake bit, or he's just changing how he plays his game?
Well, I'm pretty sure his shooting percentage is quite down to what it regularly is. So I think he is a bit snake bit. Like that top, like when they had Thornton on that line, like they were dominating in possession, but they just weren't getting any even strength goals. And he still isn't producing really a lot at 5-on-5 for whatever reason. I don't think the team overall has really hit their stride yet, and that includes Matthews.
Sanjay?
In terms of Matthews or Marner, just watching them play, I think Matthews is the straw that stirs the drink. No slouch. Marner's no slouch as all, but I definitely noticed Matthews out there a little bit more. Maybe it's just because he is the centerman and he is kind of like the first overall pick, the like hyped prospect. But no, I would say I would go with Matthews on this one, but it's close.
Yeah.
So speaking of great scoring and everything else, Gretzky turned 60 last week. What is your favorite Wayne Gretzky memory? We'll start with Sanjay, who for so many years wasn't born while Gretzky was just torching his team.
Yeah.
So what Kings-based memory do you have? Because it's going to be the Kings.
It's funny. I never really cheered for him in the NHL. Shocker, I know. Former Oiler, he's the greatest of all time. Like, I'm not going to argue that. Like, I do know hockey, and he is the greatest. But for me, my memory, it's not so much a memory, but it is a moment. And my favorite Gretzky moment is before I was even born, but it's 1987 when he played in the Canada Cup with Lemieux on a line, which is the greatest line of all time. You have two best players playing on a line. And Gretzky, the last two games, like, he was unreal. Like, you look at his points, he got like 5 points one game, and I think he got like 6 points in the decider, and he assisted Lemieux's game-winning goal. It's just iconic, man. It's one of the most iconic goals in Canadian hockey history. It's one of the most iconic goals in hockey history. And for me, I would have loved to see that live. But that's what I think of Gretzky and like his highlights. I watch, I think of those highlights and those games.
Go on.
I too, like Sanjay, never really appreciated Wayne Gretzky when he was in the league. By the time I really got into hockey, he was at the tail end of his career, and I just didn't think too much of him. And it's too bad I didn't get to appreciate his greatness in real time. My favorite moment actually has nothing to do with on the ice or in a game. My favorite moment of Gretzky was the McDonald's commercial with him and Matt Sundin when they were essentially playing a game of horse and trying to outdo each other, getting the puck in the net. I love that commercial.
Two equal players, really. Sundin, Gretzky, all equal.
In the Toronto media's mind, they were.
Absolutely. Just like in that TSN highlight package, Wayne Gretzky's number one moment ever was the high stick on Gilmore in the 93 playoffs.
Yeah, the Sportsnet. Like, what was that?
Was that Sportsnet?
Yeah, the Sportsnet. I was like, what? Like, that's his greatest moment ever? The greatest hockey player?
Was bad.
Even I have to admit that's bad. There's no way that should even be included in the top 10.
I have two. My first one, Pro Stars. That was like my big Wayne Gretzky like introduction. I was a kid of the 80s and early 90s, and that was one of my big introductions to him. Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson.
Could you imagine? Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky, and Bo Jackson. Don't worry, guys, I got this.
Well, there's that music video where Michael Jackson and Michael Jordan play basketball. So
yeah. Oh God. No, but it's it's got those guys from our generation, that were great. Minus a little Bo Jackson. He was great because he played two sports, right?
Bo Jackson is like probably one of the greatest athletes of all time.
He just had like a hip
I don't even think you can argue that one. He got injured, and like, that's why.
Yeah, he was like unreal.
Deion Sanders, he played two sports.
Yeah, he was unreal.
Yeah,
too.
but because Bo Jackson is more than just two sports. He was like elite at both. That's the thing.
Okay.
You know who else played two sports? John Elway.
Yeah, Jesse
Really?
Lumsden.
Michael Jordan.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. John Elway could have left he didn't have to get drafted by Baltimore. So he said he was going to go play for the Yankees because he was drafted by them. So he could have done that instead. Crazy. But yeah, what's your second one?
Well, my second one was I read the Gretzky book, Gretzky, and one of my favorite stories was I think it was the 50 goals in 50 games. He was on the way to the rink, and he just kind of had a feeling that he was going to get to that milestone, and he did. And like that's just a short version of how it's told, but that sticks out. That was a really good book, actually. So that sticks out for me.
I'm going to go with, because like you said, everyone, we didn't really appreciate it at the time. And by the time I could form most memories, he was already kind of moved on. But I will state that a good memory is probably his GMing of Team Canada for at least the Salt Lake City team. Not so much necessarily later on.
When you brought back essentially the same team, but they were 4 years older.
And slower. There were some people in there that never should have been, but whatever.
Over Crosby.
Yeah, exactly. So there's some bad points, but you know what? He did also bring us back a gold medal, which is something that hadn't happened in a long time, and I think that's another notch. And it's interesting that he got that job as a GM, and I know everyone says it's an easy GM job, but a lot of guys use that to position themselves into other spots in hockey. And Gretzky, for as much as like he was not really a great coach. I'm surprised he never had any other work around GMing or anything like that.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to say about Gretzky, my dad told me about when he used to do drafts, fantasy drafts growing up, but like in the 80s and 90s. And if you were to pick Gretzky, you had to choose either assists or goals. You couldn't just take the total points because you would automatically win because he would get 200 points a game or a season. So you had to take either goals or assists for Gretzky for your fantasy pool.
He has more assists than some of the greatest players will ever have points. Like,
he has more assists than every other player has points. If he never scored a goal, he'd still be the most points in NHL history.
That's amazing. Yeah, exactly.
All the records he has, right? Like I copied and pasted all the records he has into my document I have for any research I do before the show, and it took up 4 pages.
61, I think it's 60 or 61. He lost some and then got some back when Lemieux retired. When Lemieux retired, he lost a couple, and then when Lemieux came back, he got them back or something. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, it was points per game that Lemieux when he came back, it dropped. Yeah, but I have a question. So if you put prime Gretzky with today's skates, today's sticks in the NHL today, how many points would he put up in a season? Like people always debate this, but like you're talking about Gretzky in his prime, not like at the end of his career, but like when he's putting up 200 point seasons in the 80s, that Gretzky with today's skates, sticks, all the new equipment, how many points is he putting up in 82 games?
All of today's workouts, all of today's like
everything like nutrition,
but also today's goaltenders he's shooting against and overall better players. Bigger players, more speed too. I don't think he gets up to 200 some points. I think he's still the top point getter. Probably maybe he gets 150. I don't think he gets up to 200.
It's weird because I don't think the game's the same anymore, but at the same time, it's more offensively minded now than it has been for the last 20 years. So the thing is about him is even as a kid, he was thinking about hockey. Like when Walter was on Hometown Hockey, he was talking about how Wayne took like a pen and essentially when he was watching a hockey game, sat there with paper, moving the pen, following on the ice, and wherever the line crossed, he's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, wherever the line crosses, where the puck is the most." Like as a little kid, he knew enough to know that. So when we talk about hockey sense, his hockey sense was like way off the chart. He doesn't think of himself as a goal scorer either, right? Like he was like, I had to work for goals. There was when they were talking about McDavid and Draisaitl right now. He's like, Draisaitl's a pure goal scorer. McDavid and I have to work for our goals, is what he said.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, like he really probably did because he wasn't known for his like. He has one slap shot goal, and that's like a big one because he gets out of the box and then just snipes it there.
Yeah.
But I do think his ability to read plays, to see stuff, he could probably still make a lot of points. But it's a different world now, right?
Well, you've heard that story from Luc Robitaille from the 93 playoffs where Robitaille was behind the net with the puck and Gretzky literally skated to him and went like 1 second and then he skated away and then skated back right into a perfect position where there was no one covering him, and Robitaille fed him the puck and he scored. Like to be able to like, 1 sec, I'll be right back. Skate away, come on back, know exactly where to go. Such a smart player.
Oh,
Yeah, he really was. That's crazy. We don't really get to talk much about outside of the league. Sorry, I should say outside of the North in the league, because it's become really hard to kind of keep track of anything beyond this. Like for the most part, I have really dropped off as to what other teams are doing because they no longer affect the standings that are affecting like Canadian teams, right? So we're kind of stuck in this almost in our own little bubble here when it comes to how they're doing. But some knows that Washington had been undefeated, but it looks like they're going to get defeated tonight. And the Panthers were also undefeated in regulation. So let's just talk a little bit about some of the American teams and what they're doing. Like, what's a team that surprised you so far, either being good or bad, and just how you feeling about the whole separation from the U.S. during this time? Go ahead, Adam.
I feel that too. It's a little harder, but there have been times where I've come to the basement to play with my youngest child. He runs around and I'll have a game on and I'll kind of run around with him and check in. And every time that happens, it's like a Buffalo afternoon game. So it's been nice because I wanted to see how Hall has fit in with Eichel, Reinhart, Olofsson, Stahl, all those guys there. It seems to me that that's a team that should be achieving a bit better than they are. But Hall seems to be a pretty good fit there, especially with Reinhart, like within those two lines. But like, you know, I've only seen bits and pieces of about 2 or 3 games. And I think their goaltending is really kind of hurting them. And I don't think they're getting the defense that they need as well. You know, they've got those hotshot offensive defensemen in Ristolainen and Dahlin, but they need more out of their goaltending tandems of Ullmark and I believe it's Hutton. Am I right?
No, Hutton is the goalie for St. Louis.
And who's their other goaltender then? I know it's Ullmark and
Dominic Hasek.
Yeah, we'll go with Hasek.
He's back, baby.
Now I got to look it up. Yeah. But that's who I've kind of been, who I have seen. And I have seen like Washington, Boston. I've seen a little bit of Pittsburgh. And it's weird how different Pittsburgh looks this year as opposed to years past because they just don't look as good at all.
Sanjay, what about you?
You know, I'm right there with you. I just seem to follow the Canadian teams because every game is so important. You know, you're battling for position for the playoffs that you just kind of watch it. And it's more interesting because you're like, okay, you know, Calgary's got to play this team or, you know, they're battling with this team. So it is like, I find it way more interesting. And I'm that way with the NFL as well. Like I'll watch in the division of my team and then the other teams don't really like pay as much attention to. But you did mention the Panthers undefeated in regulation, which is pretty incredible because we were on this, you know, not a lot of high hopes for them. Are they going to trade Barkov? Are they going to trade their goaltender, Bobrovsky? And they just went out, you know, and I think they had some COVID issues as well. So they started late and they had some games postponed. And for them to be like 4-0-1, I think it's pretty incredible. So hats off to them.
5-0-1. But they've only played 6 games too, right?
A correction. It is Carter Hutton. And
it is Hutton.
Yeah, it is Hutton.
I was thinking.
Oh, Adam was right.
I should have done the
old.
You
should have done a $10 bet. Should have done it.
But I didn't make money. I learned my life. I'll get my money back from Sanjay anyways.
Somehow.
Elon, you?
I have to go with the Panthers as well. They're a team that every year I thought, okay, this is the year the Panthers are going to make the playoffs. And every year they disappointed. And so this year going in, I thought, you know what? I'm not going to believe in this team. They just disappointed me every single time. But yeah, undefeated in regulation so far. And they are doing, it's really on the back of their defense. Their defense has been really, really good this season. Aaron Ekblad and Mackenzie Weegar have been a dominant top pairing combo. They've really been able to shut down opposition teams, opposition's forwards. And their power play is doing really, really well as well. It's the 4th ranked power play in the league right now. And I was just looking into their goaltending. I wasn't sure how Bobrovsky's been doing because I too haven't been watching the Panthers, and he hasn't been doing necessarily great. But their other goalie, I don't know if I'm saying this right, Chris Driedger, he's given them solid goaltending. They've actually split the number of games. It's been 3 games each, and he has a .937 save percentage. So he's been helping them out big time too. So it looks like they're a great defensive team this year. Offensively at 5-on-5, not that impressive, but if their power play can keep getting them goals, I think they can keep getting enough wins to stay atop the league, top their division, or at least make the playoffs.
Nice. I'll go with the Philadelphia Flyers because I think they're going to be good, but I didn't think they'd be 7-2-1 with tons of scoring, enough that you can actually sit one of your top point getters in a game for pissing you off. I think that's kind of a surprise, and I'm a little surprised by St. Louis. To be honest with you, I thought they showed kind of in the bubble that they weren't really as good as they were thought to have been, and going into that, I kind of thought that they losing Pietrangelo and stuff was really going to take a toll on them, and so far it really hasn't. And I think that's a little bit of a surprise as well. But there's some interesting things there. Minnesota's doing really well right now, and I think that's kind of neat. But they're not doing amazing. Still, the fact that they are even in the top 3 of their division there is pretty nice to see, considering that I would have never pegged them that high. So that's a big switch there for the American teams that I kind of like to see.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move on to our Northern Exposure. Northern Exposure this week is on the Edmonton Oilers. Talk about how they've done, how things have looked so far. We'll go to the floor. Let Adam take this one to start.
All right. So you got the Edmonton Oilers. They make some acquisitions this summer, I guess, late summer. We get Kyle Turris centering the third line. We think that's an upgrade. We get, Tyson Barrie to kind of replace Oscar Klefbom on the blue line because Klefbom's going to be out for shoulder surgery. And then, who's the other one we get there? Cahoon. Dominic Cahoon comes into play on a line with Leon Draisaitl. Now, as this, nothing to address the goalie situation, as people like to call it, with Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen. Now, they came out and it wasn't great. It has not been a good start to the season. We're seeing a lot of the Oilers that we'd seen before. We're seeing goals and assists that are touched on by McDavid and Draisaitl. A lot of heavy relying on those guys. I saw Yamamoto taking some heat on Tim and Sid today about him not stepping up and getting enough production, but I think he's actually been quite a beast. He's been maybe one of their best players this year, even though production might not be low. There's a lot of smart plays going on. He's aggressive. He's quick. He's always kind of a scoring threat on that second line. That second line has been maybe the best and most consistent line for them throughout this season, especially with the addition of Dominic Cahoon. He's fit right in. He's had a number of scoring chances, and now he's starting to actually capitalize on them. Granted, Yamamoto did have the one clearing attempt that turned into a goal, but I mean, we're used to seeing that from the Oilers defense quite often. And, we talk about guys like Jujhar Khaira, who Barron and I like to kind of get into it a bit about, but he struggles in the defensive end. He's decent in the forecheck, in the offensive zone, decent in the neutral zone. When you get him in the defensive zone, he is a massive defensive liability, especially when he's got the puck on his stick at the blue line and he can't clear it. It drives me insane. Jujhar Khaira. So I'm kind of happy that they've taken him out and have tried new things. They've brought in Devin Shore, who's done not bad. He's been steadier than Khaira, I think. And then Gitan Haas has come in and he looks like he's picking up where he left off. He's got energy. He's more skilled than the both of them. I think he's a better producer. I think he gets bumped up for the third line. Maybe try Turris on the wing or maybe even on the fourth line and see what he can do there. That being said, they bumped Cassian down to that third line where he seems to be fitting a lot better with Turris and Neal. I like that line. They've got a really good forecheck. And, that first line bumping Puljujarvi up with McDavid, it seems, and Nugent Hopkins, it seems to be really working. He just can't seem to just can't seem to put the puck in the net. It's got to come though. Like they've had a number of really great scoring chances with Puljujärvi. It's got to come. He looks like a stronger player from playing in the Finnish league last year and stepping away from the team. He seems more mature. The defense still struggling, but I think that Slater Kukuk has been a massive upgrade on D. He's been solid every game he's played. He's been scratched a couple times this year in the past 3 games, actually. And that's kind of been perplexing for me because I'm like, why are you sitting one of your best defensive players when, he's been better than pretty much everyone else in there?
Really?
I would say,
I disagree with you.
I thought you were going to be raving about Nurse and Bear, man. Like, I think that they proved
the thing is,
great.
no, just wait.
You're like, he's one of their best defensive players. He's a third line. He's a third pairing defenseman.
No, but he has been over the past 7 games, right? That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he is their best defensive player. No, don't put those words in my mouth. Take them back.
Put those words out of your
and
mouth.
shove them back at your mouth. Okay, you listen.
2/3 of us agree.
I
want
to say something else. I think
Yes.
Darnell Nurse has taken a massive step this year. When Tyson Barrie was struggling on the power play, he came in and he quarterbacked that thing like he's been doing it for years. He looked confident with the puck. He's making smart plays. He even grabbed a guy, did the old twirly whirly bird, figure skating style, didn't get called. I also like Ethan Bear. Ethan Bear has been good. I think someone who struggled to find their game at the beginning of the year is Larson. Larson struggled. I think Russell has struggled to get into the lineup, but it's because, we've got a number of guys that they're testing out on lines with everyone. I think also Tyson Barrie's come back, and I think he gets it now. We're seeing over the past couple games, we're seeing Tyson Barrie of old, where he's moving his feet. He's got confidence with the puck. He's not afraid to shoot it, and he's not second guessing. So I don't know. And I honestly think on the back end with Koskinen there, I think he's done a really good job. A lot of the goals that have been scored on him have been brutally good. Guys left open in front. It's a really nice, easy deflection past any goaltender. So when we look at analytic numbers, Pilon.
I was going to say they're 27th in the league in team save percentage, but whatever. They're good goaltending.
But that's it, Pilon. They're 27th in the league. Like, those analytic numbers work, right? But at the same time, those are really high grade scoring chances that teams are capitalizing on, and they're one-timer goals that are happening. Koskinen has stood on his head for the Oilers, and the Oilers have not done the same for him. And that needs to start happening.
I understand.
I think
he's
it's
playing behind a bad defense, but I mean, at the same time, there's plenty of goaltenders who've played behind a bad defense and still put up good goaltending. Like, look at Connor Hellebuck last year. Yeah. He won the Vezina.
I like Koskinen, but he is guilty for at least one soft goal a game. Like,
I would
one
agree.
real soft goal a game. And he's right. Like, he's getting lots of grade A chances, but then a good goaltender is supposed to make those saves too. And he makes them sometimes. Yeah. He made them last game, I would say, against the Leafs. He made some great saves
against the Leafs. I don't think any of those goals the Leafs scored were poor.
No.
So
some other games, you can pick out those ones for sure. When it goes back to Slater Cuckoo, I think Slater Cuckoo's been great. He's a third pairing defenseman. They're rotating in guys to keep them fresh. That's why he's getting sat down. And can he play second line minutes? Potentially, but at the same time, are you going to sit Tyson Barrie for Slater Cuckoo? No, are you going to sit like someone else? And the truth is, I don't think they're going to sit Larson, but Larson needs to get his game going. And I think that's why. Do I think Larson should have been sat by now? Probably. It hasn't been up, but I don't know. Like this team, like, it's nice that they're getting going. Everyone's celebrating because we beat Ottawa, but they beat Ottawa 8-5 with an AHL goaltender. They still allowed a lot of really poor chances. That bottom six is terrible. As much as you don't like Jujar, he has 0 goals scored against him on the PK, and Devon Shore has something like 3 with only 2 more minutes of actual playing time on the PK. That was prior to Friday's game with the Leafs. So in that game, they let in another 2 or 3, and they let in more against Ottawa. That PK is awful. It's one of the worst in the league. And if Jujar or Kara would come in and just shut down your PK, then I say, who cares how he is 5-on-5? Because as much as you say he doesn't get into the zone, he has 0 goals scored when he's on there because he gets in the lane and blocks the shot, and other guys don't.
Are you guys surprised at all that the penalty kill is so bad? Because in the preseason episode, I had said I was actually surprised how good it was because the team is so bad. And we all knew the Oilers weren't going to be great defensively this year. I think that was just going to be a given. My concern for the Oilers was going to be their penalty kill. And if they could keep up the great job that they did last time, because to me, it doesn't make sense. If you're a bad defensive team, how can you be good on the penalty kill? And it's come to form that it's dropped off. Were you guys surprised?
Well, we're missing a big killer in Sheehan, who left last year. He was a huge penalty killer for the Oilers. Him and Archibald were great up front on the penalty kill. So I think that really hurts you. And then, that defense this year just looked really unsteady in the first 5 to 7 games. Like, they just didn't look comfortable. Whereas now when you're watching, they do. But like, even 5 goals against in Ottawa, there's a lot of work to be done. A lot of work.
Although I'll give Edmonton props. I had said that I didn't think they had a top pairing defenseman on the team, but Nurse and Bear are proving me wrong. I think they've proven that they can handle those minutes. They control possession. They control the play when they're on the ice. And this is a bad defensive team. I mean, there's only 5 players on the team with a positive plus minus, but 2 of them are Bear and Nurse. Like, they're doing a great job.
It's interesting, like you say, with the PK being terrible, and like how this occurred. I don't know if one player made that much of a difference, but I do think there's just seems to be a lack of ability to do those things that people need to do on a PK. Most guys step into lanes, get the shots. They're not. Guys are tipping. You have young guys out there right now filling in some of those spots, and guys you brought in to fill those spots haven't really stepped up to that role yet. And I think that's a big problem. You're asking someone like Turris, who's essentially like an offensive player prior to this year, to step in and become a defensive player and to be there on your PK, and he's learning it. But I mean, I actually didn't think I thought the PK would regress. I didn't think it would regress from like 3rd to bottom 2, and that is a problem. So
at least their power plays come on. Their power play started off horribly at the start of the season, and now it's come on in their top 10 in the league. So,
right. But their bottom 6 and everything else.
Their bottom 6 is the issue for scoring. Yeah.
Well, and
Go ahead, Adam.
Okay, one thing I do have kind of a gripe with is Tyler Ennis. I think he brings an energy to the team that's needed in the bottom pairings, and a speed and skill that they don't have. And he's been waived and scratched a number of times as well this year. So I don't know what's going on there, but played a great game and then was scratched. And
he's not providing offense, right? I don't know what they were expecting him to get, but
he is.
Aaron, you're right. The secondary, like, I thought the special team regression, which I expected to happen, would be replaced by more 5-on-5 offensive scoring and more scoring depth from the fantastic moves, or at least I thought they were fantastic moves in the offseason. Like, I thought Turris would be a great 3rd line center and bring in some great points for them. He only has 3 points. Dominic Cahoon, I figured he'd be a fantastic 2nd line guy. He usually puts up points worthy of top 6. He only has 3 points. Zach Cassian has regressed from his best offensive year last year. He's down to 3 points. And then Jesse Puljujarvi, I mean, we weren't really too sure what he'd be able to do, but he's only put up a couple as well. And then, as Adam mentioned, Tyler Ennis. So, I mean, yeah, their bottom 6 is just not helping out McDavid and Draisaitl. And unless they're both scoring 5 points a game, they're just relying too much on them again.
I don't know if it's a reliant. Yeah, it's like you have to rely on them because the rest of them aren't doing anything. But even if those would stay 0, you wouldn't care. If those bottom 2 lines would stay 0, you'd be like, right. No, it's fine. But the fact that they're bleeding goals and hemorrhaging like that, that's what's killing you. The fact that your PK is allowing goals, that's what's killing you. If those things didn't occur, if you remove those power play goals that other teams have scored, and then go from there, it'll actually change how things work for that.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
I'll try a different segment here. We're roughly at over an hour here, but I'm sure there's some editing that'll change that down. But I did want to try a segment with each of you individually here. So what I was going to ask is that I'll start with one person. We're going to do a rapid fire question just to get your answers, and then go from there. And you can tell us who you think is right when it comes to answering these questions. But for the other 2 that aren't taking part in this at a time, so what I'm going to try to do is time you as you go, see who can get there through it fastest, and so forth. And then we're just going to, it'll be like a series of like 10 or 15 questions. You give me a quick 1-word answer as quick as you can to the question. The other 2, I don't want you to listen. I want you to go mute on this or just wait it out so you don't hear it, because I want you to come back to it. And how this will work is, viewer, you can vote and tell us what you think, who you think's the best for this answer, and we'll score points based on who has the most original answers, who has the quickest time, and who the viewers like, I guess. I'll try to keep some notes of this. Yeah, basically it's Family Feud,
Family
except
Feud.
we don't have an answer. We
Survey
don't have an
said?
answer bank. There is no survey. That's the problem. They just have to say who they like first. So which one of you three suckers, guys, would like to go first?
I'll go first.
Oh,
All right. Well, with that, Adam's going to join here for the rapid fire segment. The other two are going to take off, and then I'll give a signal like this, and then one of you can come back on. Discuss it amongst yourselves. I don't know if you want to type it and see who you think should be, but okay. Adam, so this is the rapid fire segment. So there's a series of questions here. I've written them down. I wrote them down really terribly and scribbly, so I don't even know if I can read it, but I'll do my best. But I just want a quick 1 or 2 word answer as fast as you can, moving on to the next one and so forth. I'm going to get my timer ready here for this.
Okay.
We'll see how this whole segment thing goes. I have no idea. I just thought of this beforehand. Thought this would be something fun to try. So
I'm excited.
All right. You ready?
Oh, yeah.
I'll catch you down. 3, 2, 1. Will someone trade for DeAngelo?
No.
Next Pens GM.
Shirelli.
Connor McDavid in one word. Describe him. This is from the NHL Store.
120 points this year. Oh, okay.
Early Calder. Well, winner, I guess. Whatever.
McJesus.
Early Calder winner.
Ooh. Ooh. Oh, God. Stutzel.
Line or Dubois.
Oh, Line.
Describe the Senators in one word.
Shit.
Who is underrated on your team?
Yamamoto.
What place will Calgary finish in the division?
6th.
Favorite American team?
Buffalo.
Best Canuck player?
Hoglander.
Matthews in one word. Describe him.
Sniper.
Demko or Holtby?
Demko.
Worst retro reverse, Leafs or Jets?
Leafs.
Would you re-sign Anderson if you were the Leafs?
Yes, short term.
Don't sleep on which team?
Oilers.
Neil or Lucic?
Neil.
Best team in Canada?
Oilers.
Oh,
Montreal.
is 133.72. So Adam's at 133.72.
And the best team in Canada is Montreal.
That's your opinion. You can
Do I get to stay on and listen to these guys now?
Yeah, if you want, sure.
Oh yeah, I do.
You. Okay. So, Pilon, you ready to go next here?
Sure.
Okay. Do you want to know his time?
Sure.
It's 133.72.
Yeah.
Is Adam's time. So it's just rapid fire questions, sometimes one word, maybe a little bit more. Try to do it as quick as you can. And good luck. Adam gets to listen to you, though, because
it's Sanjay.
first.
Adam gets to listen. Okay.
Joe Thornton. Gross. What's he doing? Is he going to the washroom? He's going to the washroom.
He gives up.
He's just like, I'm done with this.
I don't like games.
You're just gonna see this cat like knocking all those DVDs.
So it's
He
one
actually
word,
has
or
a
it's like
soundproof booth.
Well, no, some will be more, but it's like
Okay.
that's what I'm looking
just
for.
whatever I
right?
think of. Okay.
Yeah, as best you can. All right. We're gonna count you down. This is rapid fire. 3, 2, 1. Will someone trade for DeAngelo?
No.
Next Pens GM will be
John Ferguson Jr.
from the NHL. Describe Connor McDavid in one word.
Fast.
Early Calder winner.
Kaprizov. How do you say his name?
Line or Dubois.
Line.
Describe the Ottawa Senators in one word.
Horrible.
Who is underrated on your team?
Oh crap! I'm losing time.
You can say pass if you're really stuck.
Dermott.
I'll go. What place will Calgary finish in the division?
Second.
Favorite American team?
Buffalo Sabres.
Ooh, best Canuck player?
Pedersen.
Describe Auston Matthews in one word.
Elite goal. Oh, one word. Goals.
Demko or Holtby?
The Demko.
Worst retro reverse, Leafs or Jets?
Leafs.
Would you re-sign Anderson?
Depends.
If you're a hockey fan, don't sleep on which team?
Panthers.
Neil or Lucic?
Neil.
Best team in Canada?
Toronto.
Okay, guess your time.
I waited too long for the underrated player on my team. 140.
123-32.
Ooh.
Yeah. All right.
So I beat you then, Adam.
Yeah,
Son.
Nice.
you did, you bastard.
Nice.
All right, Sanjay, you're the final contestant. So essentially what you're going to do is just give one word answer or more, depending on what you want to say.
Yes.
And try to get through the questions as quickly as possible and coherently as possible. You have to give an actual answer. So if something like, what's your favorite Pop-Tart? And you say slushy, that doesn't count, you know?
Yes.
Okay, you understand how games work. I gotcha.
No.
All right, well, this is rapid fire. We're going to start in 3, 2, 1. Will someone trade for DeAngelo?
No.
The next Pens GM will be?
Mike Gillis.
Describe Connor McDavid in one word.
Unfair.
That was from the NHL. The early Calder winner is going to be?
Oh, geez. I don't know. I don't know any of the rookies. I'll say Hoglander.
Laine or Dubois?
Laine.
Describe the Senators in one word.
Disaster.
Who is underrated on your team?
Underrated?
Yep.
Sam Bennett.
No. Anderson.
What place will Calgary finish in the North?
4th.
Who's your favorite American team?
Favorite American team? I'll go with Washington.
Best Canuck player?
Jay Beagle.
Matthews in one word. Describe Auston Matthews in one word.
Maple Leaf.
One word.
That's one word. Two. That's two.
Maple.
Yeah.
Maple. Demko or Holtby?
Holtby.
Worst retro reverse jersey, Leafs or Jets?
Oh, Leafs.
If you were the Leafs, would you resign Anderson?
Yes.
If you're a hockey fan, don't sleep on.
If you're a hockey fan, don't sleep on. Oh, that's a tough one. I'm gonna go. This is a terrible one. I'm taking too long on this. I'm gonna say Mangiapane.
Neil or Lucic?
Lucic.
And best team in Canada is?
Montreal.
Oh, guess your time, Sanjay.
I don't know. A minute and a half.
Oh, a little bit longer. 141.97.
Winner.
Place.
Is that it? Do I win?
Well, you didn't win. You won the one.
What do I win?
round.
$10?
You won the time.
No.
Yes.
Pick
When
one
are you
of
saying me that
Sanjay's
$10,
movies.
Baron? E-Trans.
Sanjay
Baron's
did the
got all the
worst.
right answers.
Sanjay did the worst. You can pick one of his movies. Anyone.
Aw.
Doesn't matter if it's a Blu-ray, one of those fancy mega
Metal work.
boxes or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll never miss it, Sanjay. You never watch them anyways.
I have some duplicates you can have.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Slowly, he's going to start offering you guys
Sanjay, as long as it's not Justice
digital
League.
codes.
Yeah. We won't
Sell
get
you the
into that.
digital code to his 7th edition of Justice League. You know
Yeah.
it's true.
We got into
All right,
it on
that wraps
Twitter
up-
over the new Justice League.
I did not see that.
Oh,
True
yeah.
story.
You should go check it out. It's pretty funny.
I don't know. I think Adam, my Jujar conversation is just as thrilling, if not more. So. All right, well, that wraps up this week of Delayed Offside. Like and subscribe. Feel free to comment. Please do not send us links to your trash. Tell us who you think won on this one on the speed round. Let us know. Lovely shout out to our editor, Pilon, who does all the beauty work there, and to everything else. All right, have a great week. Enjoy the week of hockey. I'm Baron.
I'm Adam.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Sanjay.
And this is Delayed Offside.
Delayed Offside.